Hello explorers and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about LM Studio. And I have been looking into running this LibreChat locally in order to run different LLMs and so on. And I came to the conclusion that it's a great way if you want to set up something for multi-tenant and a lot of people. It's something that I still want to pursue. The problem is that currently the merge request that I created for LibreChat has been in the pipeline since November, and I haven't heard anything about actually doing any changes or if it's just approved and they will merge it soon. So while I wait for that, I wanted to look into running LLMs locally for personal use. So this is not something that you will install in your company. This is something that you will run for yourself. And LM Studio is a really nice one. So if we switch over to my screen here, we can see the download page. And on the download page, you can download for Linux, which I use. And here we have both app image that you can run and Debian package if you are running a Debian-based OS. And you can also choose a version. Currently there's just one version to choose and two different kinds of processing architectures. And you can also choose Windows. So there you have an executable for Windows and Mac OS. And here you can also choose not that many different execution, but Snapdragon for Windows. So there is a bunch of these executables, and the Debian package you download and install as a Debian package for Linux, and the app image should be something that you can just run under Linux. The problem I had there was that my Chromium installation in Debian was installed by Snap, which didn't allow me to run it with the sandbox because that feature is not available there. So I had to find a way of installing Chromium in a way so you can actually run Electron app in a sandboxed way. So I thought that Debian is probably Debian packages is the easiest for my Ubuntu installation, but your mileage may vary there. What's easiest for you to install it? If we jump into the actual LM Studio, I have it up and running here. The really cool part here is that you have your chats on the side here. You can hide those, and then you have a chat window as every other chat window. On this side you have a bunch of presets that you can choose by. You can have a system prompt, so the LLM will answer you in a particular way, but it also tells you a token countdown here, because every LLM has a token window where it will remember what you were talking about. And if you are using a lot for your system prompt, of course you will have less tokens for your actual questions. And in the settings, if we open the settings here, there's a little cog down here. We can see first off what we are running here. We're running on Q.12, and we can do auto updates, and we can update to the next stable or beta release. And there is a couple of tools that we can upgrade here. We can see our hardware information over here. We can see our integration. And here I have a search integration that I have allowed. Can remove the other ones. So this is something that I built myself. There are a bunch of these online that you can install if you want. So you can get search. So it can actually gather information in order to have a better experience. This is something that I need, because usually I ask a question and I want a researched answer. And sometimes the answer is not available in the LLM. Model defaults, here you can do a lot of settings as well. So guardrails you can have, strict, relaxed, balanced, and so on. And then you can have other options down here, how you actually are typing and so on. This value here for token, the context length, it's set to 4096 at the moment. And for most of the LLM models, this is a pretty good value. If you are, in my case, using a GPU with 12 gigs of memory, I could load a 10, 11 billion parameter model and run in this. If you're running to the maximum of the model, then you need a graphics card that can handle both the context length times the amount of memory that takes for your model. So there is a correlation between the size of the model and these values. You can actually do a calculation there. Then we have a bunch of chat settings. You can decide on how it should look. We have developer settings with even more settings. Appearances, so you can have the color theme and everything like that. So the normal settings pretty much. And in this, then you can have different models. And this is one thing that I thought was really cool. If you're looking at this robot over here and clicking it, we will get this model view where you can see different models. So the first one here, GLM 47 Flash, it can only be partially offloaded to my GPU. So it's not a model that is small enough so I can actually run it on my GPU, pretty much. It's too large. So I looked down here, and then we have these icons here. So we have one icon which is a green mark, and the green mark here tells you that this supports reasoning. Then you have a blue mark with a little bit of a hammer, and that tells you that it can use tools. And then you have a yellow mark here, and this can take image processing, and it's a little eye there. So the first one that could do image and tools and also reasoning was this GLM46V hash. And this can be fully offloaded on my GPU. So I have downloaded and installed this one so I can actually run that. But just that you have a view where you have more information about the model. And we can also see in this that you can actually have a token length of 128,000 tokens. And for my GPU, that is not possible because the model is too large. But you could choose to download a different version if you want. So you can show all options here. So you can download an even larger one if you want. And here we can see that I can run a one that is 10 gigabyte in size. But then if I go up to this 11 gigabytes, it can only be partially partially used. So you can see a lot about these different models and the use cases that you can have with them. So this interface makes it so much easier to keep track on new models that are released, download them and use them in your interface. And these are staff picks. So these are actually things that people have looked up and fixed for you. But let's say that I would like to run the model that I used before, Hermes. And then it will actually look on Hugging Face and find Hermes. So it can look up other models that has not been picked by staff, but here you can also see information about those models. So if you have a particular model that you have heard about, you can search it here and probably find something that you can just download and install easily. So that's such a great interface. I really like that one. Then up here, this blue bar here, we can see what model we currently have loaded that we can run. So I've loaded this GLM 4.6V flash model with a context of 4096. And you can eject it and load another model if you want. And so then you can have something in the chat window here, of course, and then get the result. You can add tools. So here we have tools for JS Sandbox, Code Sandbox. We have a RAG V1 interface that we can run. And then we have this MPC search. So I have a search in model enabled here. And we can also see that we have vision and reasoning added to this model. And this search that is added to MVC, there is a configuration MVC JSON that you can open here in the interface. And here we have a simple configuration of this. So this will run an MPC from another repository. So somebody created something called MPC Search XNG, and I have a local installed Search XNG, and I also have a video about how to install that. So this interface here will run MPX install this this model and then run it with these environment variables. So just by adding this, you will run that code from that repository from npm. But of course, I wanted to have a little bit more of a say which code was actually running on my machine. So I created my own. So let's change the definition. So this definition is what I'm running currently, of course, with other values. So here we can run this index.js that I have created in this distribution package. So I build it, so I get JS. Currently it's a TypeScript thing, and then you run it with Node, and these are the environment variables. So you have search xng API key, search xng API URL, firecrawl API URL, firecrawl API key, and then firecrawl version. So I wanted to use firecrawl as well because I have a locally installed one, so why not use it for crawling the different sites and get JSON responses. And let's switch over to my code editor here so we can look at this. This is totally vibe coded. I have done reviews on it, looked at the code and have some suggestions on improvements. But mainly everything is written by Claude. So this is not my code per se, but I think it's pretty reasonable. There is something called a model context protocol by Anthropic that has the server component, a studio standard in and out server transport. The server is deprecated if you are using the higher level versions, but this transport layer is a lower level, and I'm not using the more complicated things in this context, so that it will be fine. Then we have some kind of call request schema, list tools request schema, and a tool, and these are also types that we can use later on. And we are using Axios, which is a very common library in order to do HTTP traffic. And then we take in all of these environment variables. We defined a particular result back from xng, and we also have the current response, which contains a bunch of these results. So we will get the query back, the number of results, and then you have a list of results here. And then you have answers, completions, and info box, and then suggestions. So we have a bunch of things that comes back from this. The search params that we can send in is a query, some categories, engines, language, page number, time range, and safe search. Safe search was one of those that I needed to add because one of the models was actually asking or adding that information. So the other one that I was just downloading and installing was crashing because it didn't support safe search. So this was some of that addition I did here. Firecrawl response here. This is what you will get from Firecrawl, and what we are interested in is the markdown response. And the client here, super simple, just a record for the headers with a user agent. We add the bearer if we have the API key, and then we just create a response here and a timeout of 30 seconds, I believe, or it could be very much longer as well, but I think it's milliseconds here. And then for the Firecrawl client, we have pretty much the same here. Not much different. The only thing is the content type here should be application JSON back, of course. And we also have built in that if we haven't decided to set an API URL for Firecrawl, we can only use search xng, and then it will respond with the HTML code instead. Just fetch that simply to the interface. So you can choose to use either with Firecrawl or not. So we will add those two clients here, and then we have the search where we send in the search parameters here. We will check if all of these are available, or else we will not add them. And then we will send the search over to the search engine with the search path and get the response back. And we can also get an error, of course. When it comes to scrape, we send in a URL. If the client is defined, we could either use version 2 or version 1. Currently I'm only using version 2, but both of them are defined, and then we will just run this and get a markdown response back, and then we will send back just the markdown information back, and if it fails we will get the error back instead. And then we will have this, let's see here, this was preparing the response here. Why is it? Yeah, so it does that post, and then we will do a fallback here. So here we will just, if it isn't supported here, we just take the URL, get a response, and respond with that data. So we will just get the HTML. A very simple fetch here. That it says that it's Mozilla, perhaps not the best, but yeah, it's fine. And then down here we see the server that is deprecated, and the capabilities in tools here, where we will define another tools down here. So this is all the information about the different parameters that are sent back to the LLM, so it knows how to call these functions. So this is important that you have this information here. And then we will add that as the request handler for just calling the interface. So the pure, not anything extra, will send this tools definition back. And if we will send in a request, so something else, then we will look at the name of this request, and if it's search, we will run the search query here and send back the result. And if it's a scrape request, we will run the scrape call instead here, scrape URL, and return the response. And if something goes wrong, the content back will be type text and the error message. So type text in a content will give it back in the right way so the LLM can use it. And then we will just have something that can start this server down here, a very simple function. We print out some information here, and then we will start the transport and connect the server and get it up and running. And we can also run this with an interface that I haven't seen before, that when you start it up, you will test these kind of model context protocol. And that is pretty cool. Not sure if I have it available here, but look into that if you're curious to write these kind of things. I think that was very useful for debugging different things that was happening here. So that was pretty much what I wanted to add in this video. If you are interested in running your own LLMs locally and not use any of the cloud provided ones, the thing that you will have less of course, is GPU power. So you can't have these huge context windows with a lot of documents and so on. Then you need to choose a very small model so you can actually have your full document in the context. So if you're using the cloud versions, the context window is much larger than you can run locally, of course. So those are kind of the things that you need to keep in mind, that local models have some limitations depending on your hardware. So I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that you liked this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. And I really want to see you in the next video.